Hey, I'm Hannah Trigwell. I had a chat with Olivia Jones about her career as a radio producer and presenter and about what really excites her in music. It was awesome to get her insights and speak to someone whose career I'd followed for quite a long time. And I feel like radio is an area that's really shrouded in a lot of mystery in the music industry. It's like one of those areas where people are like, how do I get played on the radio? Or who are these people? And do they actually care about music? And yes, like the people behind the radio shows that you love and the radio stations you listen to, they are real people, and they are real people that love great music. And I think that's really important to remember as an artist. So I've put together the best bits from our conversation, and I hope this video is useful for the musicians and the music lovers out there. Hello, Olivia Jones. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I wish we were doing this in person, actually, because I feel like it's easier to chat in person. But
it is, but then I would have had to put on some sensible trousers, and now you have no idea what I'm wearing beneath this line. So.
Brilliant. How did you get into radio?
I listened to it a lot as a teenager. It was kind of my companion during the GCSE revision hours. And yeah, I just became obsessed with it that way. And then Radio 1 had its big weekend in Maidstone, where I'm from. And the DJs were staying at a hotel within walking distance. And I was like, I'm going to go meet them. So we went and we hung out in the lobby, me and my mate, and we met them and we've got photos with them, and it's kind of cringe. But I didn't actually manage to get tickets to Big Weekend, so I didn't get to go, and I could hear it from my house. And I was A, obsessed with pop music, and B, obsessed with Radio 1.
I would find that like torture.
It was heartbreaking. And you know what you're like when you're a teenager? It hurts. And I tried to distract myself and I got through it. But I remember kind of saying to myself, like, I'm not going to be left out again. And the way to do that is to be the person that is part of it, right?
Yeah.
I remember saying to my careers advisor, I really want to be a radio presenter. And she said, only special people get to do that.
No.
Yeah, careers advisor. Why be a careers advisor if you're going to do that?
God, I hate that.
It's mad, isn't it? It's mad when you think how big the creative industry is and how many possibilities are out there. The best careers advice would be go for it.
What did you say to that careers advisor?
Yeah, I just remember being like, oh right, okay, guess I'm not special. Like, I think that pushed me back into my shell and I didn't really pursue it. And then when I got to university, after I'd picked something sensible to study, psychology and sociology, I got there and the student radio station was literally outside my halls. And I think it was maybe the second week, one of the guys was like, I'd really like to do that. And I said, yeah, I really want to do it as well. Should we do a show together? So we applied and that's how I started doing student radio, which then led on to other stuff in the industry. Student radio is that perfect setup where they're trying to recreate everything that's going on in the industry, but on like a shoestring budget in a kind of, we don't really know what we're doing sort of way, and let's try, and if it fails, no one's really listening anyway, so it's fine.
Are they still going, that student radio?
They are under a slightly different name. I haven't had the opportunity to pop back. The guy that I did my first radio show with, he's popped in because he now works for Deezer, the streaming app. And he's previously worked for MTV and stuff like that, so he popped in because obviously he was head of music, so there are really obvious skills that he picked up in that job that he then translated just by the fact he did a finance degree.
Wow.
So possibilities are endless.
Did you just go straight from kind of doing student radio, doing your degree, and just go straight into a radio role after that?
So what was kind of perfect about my my university was that they encouraged us to do a year in industry. And despite the fact I was doing psychology and sociology, they were like, why, do what you're passionate about. I remember sending letters to pretty much every radio station in the UK. And it just so happened that the one that was in the town that I was studying in was the one that was like, oh yeah, come and work for us.
Brilliant. When you have like a bad day, or when you like you say, when you just have to turn up and be there and just do it. Does it feel like a performance ever?
Radio has to be a performance quite a lot of the time. And sometimes you're in your groove and it just feels like, Some shows, 3 hours, I'm like, best version of myself. And then other shows, I'll get a horrible message or there'll be something going on in my personal life. And I'm like, my job, my responsibility is not to bring that on air with me. So that comes down to just doing your job properly. Radio is a service in the way that music is a service sometimes. And it's about what the consumer can get from it. And my job on my radio station is to provide a service of good music and entertaining content.
In terms of like the entertaining content stuff, do you have like a top 3 kind of favourite interviews you've ever done?
It's probably easier to answer the question least favourite.
Oh, right, okay.
I remember specifically Ariana Grande. I was shaking so bad. And part of that was, again, it was in a proper like film studio, and there were loads of people watching, loads of her people watching. I think her mum was there. So it was a lot of pressure, and it just didn't feel very natural to me. It's not, you know, when you go down to the pub with your mate, you don't have 20 people watching you whilst you have a conversation. So
yeah, that would feel like a nerve-wracking. Just her mum being there would freak me out.
Exactly. And I was much earlier on in my career, so I was still quite inexperienced. But looking back now, I can see the laughter in it. There's a video, in fact, I'll show you this, because I was like, let's do problems.
I've seen it.
Have you seen it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll be Iggy, you be you. So I set her up with my terrible Iggy impression. Got 99 problems, but you won't be one. Like, what? And she just absolutely like rolls, like dead roll. You have to read the room. And again, like if a pop star's not having a great day, then you go, all right, well, that's the way it's going to be. You kind of, I've definitely learned to roll with it a bit more and realise what I can control and what I can't control.
I met Mariah Carey a couple of years ago around Christmas time after a gig that she did.
Tell me everything. That must have been so mental.
I was fine. I was like, oh yeah, I'm meeting Mariah Carey. It's fine. Like, I'm not, whatever. And then suddenly started feeling insanely nervous. And I met her and I said, hi, how are you? And she said, oh, nice to meet you. I'm fine, thanks. How are you? And I said, fine, thanks. How are you? And that was it. That was my time. Oh, over. And
stuck in an infinite loop.
Honestly, I can't. It will haunt me forever. This is someone who I really look up to as a songwriter as well. That's what I wanted to say.
I get nervous for every interview, and it is nerves as well as excitement. They all just shape you, you know. The experiences of being thrown in at the deep end. That's probably the best way to learn.
I've seen you doing video call interviews recently with people. Yeah, how are you finding that?
In this setup.
Yeah, in that setup.
Yeah, it's fine. Like most of them I already know, so which is nice. So Dua Lipa, actually, so FaceTime is obviously normally in portrait, right? And then if they flip their phone, it will be in landscape. She popped up on landscape. So the portrait view that I'd seen of the room suddenly opened, and all of the stuff that I'd like pushed out of frame that was a mess was suddenly in frame. So
no.
Oh God, this
nightmare.
Is so embarrassing.
Have you had any tech issues with video calls yet?
The way that we're doing the radio show at the moment is that I am still doing the show as live, but in a 20-minute delay. So I'm ahead by 20 minutes because we don't have the function to be on off live from my house. That fell over the other day, and it just kept on playing music. It didn't go to dead air, but
that's good.
That's really difficult to hear. And there was another technical fault, which meant that two things were playing out at the same time. And there were people messaging me going, sack the DJ, this is terrible, I'm really upset and really angry at me. And it was nothing to do with me. There was nothing that I could do. I mean, I went on air and I was like, I'm really sorry that happened. At least you know that we are from home.
Live.
Yeah, right, exactly. You know that this isn't pre-recorded. There are things that if I've said it and I've thought, yeah, fair play, they've got a point, I would go on air and I would apologise for it. And I'd be like, sorry, like, bad joke. But in the same way that if you were down the pub with your mate and they made a bad joke, they'd be like, oh, sorry. and you go, all right, fair play.
Have you ever like consciously thought about what's drawn you to pop music in the beginning?
I don't know, really. I think growing up on it, you know, first single I ever bought was 3 Lions on a Shirt.
Wow.
Which is probably the most lesbian thing ever.
I was going to say, but then I didn't. And then you said it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I was just obsessed with it from a really young age. And my parents liked it. You know, Mum bought the Now albums. So I just grew up around it.
Did you ever make music?
I like play guitar and I can play ukulele. I can't sing. I can like hold a note every so often, but it's so unreliable that there's just no career in it for me. And I feel like being in radio is a great way to observe the music industry because you're so close to it, but you're kind of removed from it. And I think it's fascinating to watch how people build their careers. Do
you have any tips on that for up and coming musicians?
I think play to your strengths. You know, you look at someone like Lewis Capaldi, who's got a wicked personality and clearly enjoys doing social media. If that's your bag, go for it and be consistent. That's the most important thing with social media. And then if your strength is songwriting, then lean into that. Like Jess Glynn, we don't know a lot about Jess Glynn, and she doesn't really do that many interviews. But she's a phenomenal pop songwriter and has brilliant album sales.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions just to end. And the first one is, what is your track of the week?
Have you heard of Surfaces?
I don't know.
They've got a song out at the moment called Sunday Best. Radio 1 have put it on their C list, actually. So it's getting played. And I'm trying to convince the head of music to let me play it.
As a presenter, do you have a lot of say in who gets played and things like that?
Definitely, we get to put our point across.
Okay, so for the second and final question, what is the best lesson that you've learned in your career so far?
I think the two that tie in together is a combination of kindness and self-awareness. And that's self-awareness to know, A, when you're good, and B, when you need to work on something. There are lots of people that A, don't know when they're good, so they give up, or B, don't know when they need to work on something, so they don't make the improvements or they don't make the adjustments that they need to make in order to get further ahead. You really do have to think long term, and you also have to think about yourself and where you're going more than where anyone else is going.
Thanks for watching this video. If it has thrown up any further questions or you have things that were unanswered in this video, leave a comment below and I will try and get back to you. And for those of you who want to watch the full episode, this is taken from Backstage Pass podcast, which I host for Tommen. So I'll pop a link down below and you can watch the full episode or listen to it on Spotify. And otherwise, I will see you next time.